Roots. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the word roots? Is it a face, a distinct phrase, perhaps even a plant? Now imagine those roots being ripped from the ground and placed into a random location. The weather, area, and soil are all different, yet with time, it still manages to adjust. Now that is purpose. My parents are immigrants. With this, I grew up with no family around me, no one to get comfort from, and no one nearby. They walked onto U.S. soil with little to nothing, but only stories of their home. When they arrived to the U.S., they only spoke Spanish, didn't know customs, and might have not felt too welcome. But they had two things that some don't have: bravery and hope. My point, each story has a powerful message and a purpose. Power is discovered and it is not given. For example, my older sister used to help my father with his legal papers since he owns his own business. With this, she would sit around our glass kitchen table and help him with the difference between proposal and contract. Now, you'd think that this is a good daughter helping her father out, right? Well, it is, but it's missing one key factor. She was 9 years old. Imagine being a 9-year-old having to help your father with no experience whatsoever and having to face new challenges at 9 years old, having to learn big words such as confidentiality and having to learn along the way. It must have been tough, wasn't it? Immigrants try to make a new life filled with power and purpose and are along the way taking a risk. Years and years of being in a foreign country and having children along the way tends to make them forget their culture slightly or entirely. And you might be wondering, why am I doing this? Why are you talking about this topic? It's not even that important. Families are being torn apart. Communities are being torn apart. Parents are being taken away and children are becoming homeless. It's important to shed light on this situation, especially nowadays. It's important to keep our communities alive, especially here in Hawaii. It's important to talk about this, especially now, because there is something you can do about this. If you get up, move, to do something, to have the motivation to help immigrants especially, there's no excuse. When I was little, I was tiny. I'm talking 4 feet when I was in 5th grade. My father always told me, "You're tiny, mean, and terrible," which means troublemaker. But that makes you smart, beautiful, and powerful, which I always felt as a kid. My older sisters, who I care about so much now, but maybe back then not as much, would always verbally or physically push me around, but I always somehow defended myself, no matter the situation. Even if I was tiny, even if they were yelling at me, I would always somehow defend myself, and that made me feel powerful. My point, power is in everyone. You might not even feel it, you might not think it, but power is in every single person, no matter what. Even if you don't think you have it, power is in you. For example, having the power to admit that immigrants are the backbone of America. In June 2025, immigrants made up 15.4% of the United States population, leaving 84.6% for native-born. You might think that 15.4% isn't a lot, but it's 51.9 million immigrants in the United States. In 2024, foreign-born workers in the labor force were 77.3%, while native-born workers were only 61.7%. My point, admitting that immigrants are the backbone of America is having the power to do so. In 2024, foreign-born workers were more likely than native-born workers to be employed in occupations such as construction, transportation, and maintenance, etc., while native-born workers were more likely to be in professional occupations. This is likely because they needed a higher education and might have not had papers. I am proud to stand on both sides. I am proud that I'm able to choose which occupation I want, especially as a Mexican American. Because I am Mexican American. My parents were born in Mexico, Chochola, in the Yucatan Peninsula near Mérida. My father walked hundreds of miles to cross the border and then took a flight to Maui. Shortly after, he went back to Mexico to reconnect with my mother. Within 3 days, they got married, and on the 4th day, they flew back to Maui. Within their first year on Maui, they had my older sister, and within the next 4 years, they had my other older sister, and then yours truly. Which is why it hurts my heart and morality when someone says, you should go back to where you came from. As an American, I think how grateful I am to have so many opportunities, to get my license, to have fresh food and water on my plate every night, to be able to have beautiful views here in Hawaii, to have a beach 2 minutes away, to be able to have freedom and opportunities. I think that if I was born in Mexico, I wouldn't have all these opportunities. I wouldn't have all my achievements. I wouldn't have any of my friends. It really makes a difference. My purpose is to have a better life than my parents. My parents sacrificed everything so I could be here. They sacrificed their life. They haven't seen their families in 20 to 25 years. Imagine not seeing your mother, your father, your grandfather, your children, maybe your aunts and uncles, having to see them die over the phone for 20 to 25 years. And my purpose, solely so that my purpose is to have a better life than my parents. The power to change and move on. As we know, moving on isn't ever easy, especially if it's a loss, a breakup, death. It's never easy. For example, when my uncle died, it took me 3 months to move on, fully at least. My dad, I didn't even know until my dad told me, "He's gone, didn't you know?" He was talking about his own younger brother. His own younger brother had just died, and he seemed so casual about it, or so I thought. A couple hours later, I saw him crying, and that was the second time I saw my father cry in all of my 16 years. He wasn't able to say goodbye over the phone. He wasn't able to hold his hand as he drifted away. He would never be able to see him again, and he seemed so casual about it. I remember visiting my uncle the year prior in Mexico. We were getting ready to go back home on our flight when he knocked on our home door in Mexico. He came in and apologized how he couldn't have visited us more longer, and I told him it was okay and to not worry about it, and we would surely see him again. He hugged us tight and told me, and apologized, that he wouldn't be able to see me for my quinceañera, or my 15th birthday, similar to a sweet 16. I told him not to say that because I knew he would see it over the phone. I wish I knew the truth, and I hugged him a little tighter that day because he died a couple months later, and about 9 months later, I had my quinceañera, and I still got to dance with him, but with his portrait. Now, you might be thinking, what can you do? Well, I might not be able to do anything, you might be thinking. Well, why is this so important? Advocating, speaking up, volunteering, donations, anything simply can help with the immigration status of anyone. There's no excuse to not do anything. It's time to stand up and shed light on the situation, especially nowadays. Immigrants, my final point, immigrants are the backbone of America. My parents came to America so I could have a better life. It is the most selfless act one can do. They sacrificed years and years of being with their families, losing anniversaries and celebrations just so that their children could have a better life, not even themselves. My parents work hard and harder every single day so that I can have a better life than themselves. And that is the most selfless act one can do. My dream started because of two proud Mexican immigrants that decided to sacrifice everything they had so that their children, not themselves, their children could have a better life. My parents did everything in their possible heart so that I could have opportunities that they couldn't have, just so that their children could have a better life. They are the living example of what happens when power meets purpose. Thank you.